Hello, hello, hello. I'm excited about actually this opportunity to talk with you, share with you. My name is Natalie Gray Warren. I am excited about this opportunity to do this video for Led to Lead Conference. Welcome, ladies, all that are listening to this. I'm excited for you and what's about to happen in your life. I am going to do a presentation on what you see on the screen, which is perfect, complete, and lacking nothing, what every woman needs to know about herself. So I'm excited about doing this. My name is Natalie Gray Warren. I'll say that again. I am a speaker, a coach, an author, and a licensed professional counselor. And I have so much value that I want to share with you today. I just can't wait to jump in. So I hope you're ready to join me on this journey as we walk together. So what you'll see on the screen next is some information about myself. And so I've given you I've given you some information about myself and the titles that I hold, but I'd like to share a little more about me personally. So I am actually 6 years almost married, and next month will be my anniversary. My husband and I will share together 6 years. And in that 6-year period, we have been busy. And so we have 3 children together. I'm excited about the opportunities each day that I have with them and the things that they actually teach me. So I have a 4-year-old, I have a 2-year-old, and I have a 5-month-old. So yeah, as you can see, my life is pretty busy. But I really, really enjoy the roles that I play in regards to being a mother and a wife. In addition to me being that, I am also a transformational coach and speaker, and I assist women and support them transform their lives from the inside out. And being able to do that with clarity, confidence, and courage, that they can walk into their fullest potential and actually be the woman that they were created to be. And so that is one of my biggest passions and desires that I absolutely love doing. And in doing that, I'm able to help women just like yourself. I'm also a licensed professional counselor, and I see and serve women. I see and serve women, children, adolescents, and occasionally couples. And I enjoy that work as well. And I've been doing that private practice for 9 years. I've been in the field for 13. And then on top of that, so I know I wear many hats. I am actually a minister. And so I enjoy serving and doing in the ministry at my local church. And then last but not least, I am an author. So I have written a book, Experiences of a Whole Woman, a look inside her life. And I am finishing the second book, which is a part of what you're actually getting a taste of, is Perfect, Complete, and Lacking Nothing, what every woman needs to know about herself. And so I shared that because I wanted to end with the whole woman experience, which is a part of what you're being exposed to today, because I have a mission and I have a purpose, and it's related to helping every woman know that she is not just any woman, she's a whole woman. And I share that with you because I want you to know that as well. And that's kind of what birthed the whole woman experience. And being able to teach women and train them and coach them and serve them in many capacities on them knowing who they are and who they were created to be. And that's a big part of what you're going to get as we go through this training. Okay, so the woman you were created to be. The woman you were created to be. We're going to talk about that. We're going to look at that from a very different perspective maybe than you've ever seen before. So what I encourage each of you to do is to get a piece of paper. If you have a notepad or a journal, I advocate for those because you can keep it all together, and get you a pen, hopefully have a quiet space that you can listen in and take notes as needed. But what I really want you to do is capture and listen to what resonates within you. I believe there's something special just for you. So what you will gain, what I want to make sure you are aware of is what you're going to get out of this experience. And so what I want you to look at is what you're going to gain. You're going to gain information and insight, and I want to give practical strategies for you to better understand your identity, your value, and your security. Secondly, I want to explore some things. We're going to explore some behaviors and some habits, some beliefs that might be getting in the way of you being the woman that you were created to be. And then gaining some strategies to let that stuff go. And then the last thing I want you to learn is to see yourself and to see your life from a different point of view. And I want to give you God's perspective on how you are perfect, complete, and lacking nothing. So are you ready? I hope that you are. You're a part of this conference, so you signed up and anticipating some changes. And so I am wanting to look at them with you. Are you ready to change? And a part of what we're going to do is a lot of self-awareness. Are you ready to heal? I want to teach you some practical things you can do to heal your own life. And are you ready to grow? This is a part of the life journey. It's about self-discovery. And when we learn things, we grow. And I believe that there's opportunities, even in this hour that we have together, for you to grow. And so the first thing that I want you to do is your first assignment. Now, I didn't say this at the beginning, but this training is very, very, very interactive. I want your involvement and your engagement in this. And so I need your help. When you think of the words perfect, complete, and lacking nothing, what comes to mind? I'll give you a moment to think about it. What comes to mind when you think of perfect, complete, and lacking nothing? Okay? And then the thing I want you to reflect on after that is, do you currently see yourself as perfect, complete, and lacking nothing? And please be honest with yourself. Here's the thing I want us to do through this training. We have to be honest with ourselves. Sometimes, many times, we can fool other people. But you really want to be truthful with yourself, because that is the greatest opportunity for you to grow. All right, so now we're jumping in. We will be looking at a character from the Bible that you are very familiar with, as she is found in Genesis 1 and 2. I want to quickly go through some scriptures related to this, because I really want us to see her from a different perspective. I will be the first to admit that I had my own opinion about Eve. That's who we'll be talking about. And I'll also be honest to say I had a lot of judgments around the woman that I saw her to be. Well, here's what I want to do in our training together. We're going to look at Eve's struggles in this very beginning and see how they're related to the struggles that we have as women. You know, because when we're able to do that, I think what I have found, even in my own experience of doing this, is that I had a lot of judgments. I had a lot of opinions that were critical towards Eve. And then I had to be mindful to say, Natalie, is that also how you are towards yourself? And are you highly critical and judgmental of yourself? And so we're going to look at Genesis 1:26. I want you to read with me. If you have the opportunity to do that, it's on the screen. And God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowls of the air, over the cattle, over all of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Okay, and so the next text is Genesis 2, and it goes through many parts. But I really want us to say, focus on what God is saying to Eve, Adam, and it said to Adam, excuse me. He tells him you can freely eat of all of the trees except this one particular tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And if you eat of this fruit, you will surely die. And then God said it's not good for him to be alone, and he makes him a helper. He makes an Eve, okay? And so it goes into how the process of Eve and Adam being formed, Eve being formed from Adam. What I want us to focus on is the 25th verse that says, now man and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. They felt no shame. And so the next part of this is Genesis 3. And it's on the screen. You can read over it as I'm talking. But it really goes into detail about this interaction that the serpent has with the woman. And he asked her an important question that I want to focus on. He says, did God really say you must not eat the fruit of any of the trees in the garden? And the woman replies, it's only the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden that we are not allowed to eat. God says, and she explains, he says we must not eat it or touch it, or if we do, we will die. And so the serpent says back to her, you won't die. God knows that your eyes will be open as soon as you eat it, and you will be like God, knowing both good and evil. And the 6th verse says, the woman was convinced. The woman was convinced. And we're going to stop for the moment now, kind of reflect on that as we move forward in this training about what happens as a result of that. And so, what does this all mean? Three major challenges have occurred that I think Eve encountered. We're not just going to talk about Eve in our training today, we're going to talk about you and how this relates to you. But I believe the first challenge that what happened was it was a challenge with her identity, who she was, or who we are. It's a challenge with the value of worth. What is my worth, right? And it was a challenge with security. What brings me confidence? And we're going to learn some lessons, some life lessons that I think are applicable to every woman in regards to the struggle that Eve had in the very beginning and how we too are still having many of these struggles. So the first one is identity. Who are you? Who are you? So get your paper out. I want you for the next 30 seconds to write down all of the things that describe who you are. Are you ready? Set, go. And make sure you keep writing whatever first thoughts come to you, and all those things that describe you. You have about 7, 8 more seconds. All those things that describe you. Okay? All right. If you're still writing, it's okay. We'll keep going, but you can jot them down as I'm writing. Now, what I want you to do is look at your list, because probably on your list, there are many things that are probably a title or a responsibility or a role. Mother, teacher, sister, supervisor, friend, all of these things that describe who you are, and many of them are probably a title, a responsibility, or a role. But what I want to talk about with you is that there are probably more things about you. So if you had to go beyond that stuff, what would you say about yourself? What would you say about yourself? And is that something that's easy for you to come up with? Is that something that's difficult for you to come up with? Let me know how you're doing with that. Because oftentimes I found that it becomes very challenging and very difficult to figure out who we are outside of that stuff. And I believe Eve had a struggle with who she was. And in the text in Genesis, it talks about her and it says she was made in the image and likeness of God. That's who she was. But I think in this interaction, in this encounter, she lost sight of that. And she began to have what I believe are called unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations. Now, we're talking about Eve, but remember, this also applies to you. And so here are two common unrealistic expectations that I think we as women often have to deal with. The first one is the illusion of control. The illusion of control is this thought or this belief that you have control over things that you really don't, that we have control over things that we really don't. And so we try to keep things in a certain way and do things a certain way. And when things seem to get out of control, we become overwhelmed because we thought in some way we had control. Well, here's the signs that you might have control. You want to do everything. You want, if somebody else does it, you don't think they're going to do it the way you want them to do. You're always trying to put your hand in everything. You have this belief that I have to do it all, or it won't be done, or it won't be done right. Like all of those things are signs that you might have an illusion of control. And so I ask you to reflect, to ask yourself, in what areas do I fight to gain or maintain control? Because here's what I think happened with Eve. As she entertained the thought, I will be like God, right? Because that's what he told her. He said, you'll be like God. I think she entertained that thought in her head. And she said, if I will be like God, I will be in control. I will be in control. Well, here's the truth of the matter. And I'm sharing it with you because I have often shared this with many, as well as have to do the work myself, is that illusion is, control is an illusion. You never had it. I'll repeat that because sometimes stuff has to sit and settle. Control is an illusion. You never had it. But in the moment, I think in the garden, Eve struggled and she thought about, if I'll be like God, I will be in control. Well, here's another unrealistic expectation that I think she may have had that we also struggle with as women, is in entertaining the thought that I would be like God. I think she thought I'll be perfect. I think she thought I would be perfect. Like God, wow, like God. Here's the thing. I think sometimes we often have that same illusion where we think that we have to be perfect without flaws, without defects, right? That we are perfect. Well, the truth of the matter is that there is no perfect person. But common signs that you will find if you are struggling with wanting to be perfect, perfectionism, is things have to be done a certain way, that you are critical, highly critical of yourself and others, that you place these high standards on your life and what you think it's supposed to be. Those are just a few of the common signs of someone who may be struggling with the illusion of perfection. Well, here's the truth. There isn't any perfection. That everybody has some imperfections, but we are all imperfectly perfect. And that's the way we were created to be. And when we let go of some of this, it takes a lot of the pressure off of us. And so here's a self-evaluation, because while we're doing the work, I want you to be evaluating yourself. You want to ask yourself these questions. Where do I stand in regards to control and perfection? Where do I see myself? Where do I struggle? How or where did I learn this? Because I believe there's some belief systems that are going on that are reinforcing our behavior. And then how are you reinforcing the behavior is the last one that I just mentioned. And so I'm gonna give you a moment to just look at the questions and jot down just a few things that are coming to mind. Because this training isn't just for information. I want to see transformation. And I know transformation I know information precedes transformation. But transformation doesn't happen without action. That's a part of why I'm here talking with you and doing this training, because I want to see you put some things in action so that you can be the woman you were created to be. And so here's the truth. You are perfect. Now you just said, Natalie, wait a minute, perfection was an illusion. I want to teach you that God does see you as perfect, that He created you to be perfect, but not in the way you thought. So God's perspective. God sees us as perfect. That means something different. It means that you are as good as possible, that you have all the required or desirable elements and characteristics, and that you are completely free of faults and defects, which is different than being without faults. Okay? That God created you with all the required elements, qualities, and characteristics, and He sees you as perfect. And while you may focus on your shortcomings, He sees you as perfect. And this is what defines your identity. This is the woman you were created to be. And so you might say, Natalie, I'm in this state. I don't know what to do. And I want to give you a solution. The solution to move through what I am calling unrealistic expectations of yourself and who you think that you are is you have to operate under self-compassion. You have to operate under self-compassion. And self-compassion is basically this. Think about how you would treat a friend if they were going through something or they had a difficult moment. Think about how you would act. Think about what you would say. Think about your tone of voice. Those are things that you would offer them under compassion. And now how you do that in self-compassion is you give yourself that. Meaning, maybe you give yourself self-compassion in that you didn't meet the deadline and you wanted to and you are being hard on yourself. But you give yourself a break and you say, you know what, I did the best that I could. Or maybe next time I'll just plan differently. It's the same thing that you would do with that friend. You offer it to yourself. The benefits of this is that we oftentimes can be very critical, very harsh, and very judgmental of ourselves. The benefit is that you won't have that, and that you will be more loving and kind to yourself. That's how you could operate under self-compassion, which is the solution to dealing with unrealistic expectations that are causing you to feel and be different than what you were created to be. And so this training is about doing work. And so what I want you to do now in this moment is to really reflect on what you see below. Question to ponder: how do you believe God sees you? Sometimes how we see ourselves is not aligned with how God sees us. And I told you, God sees you as perfect. And then so what you want to do, if you're seeing a difference between what you believe and what God sees, you want to do this. And we all can do this. You want to say an affirmation, and I'll teach a lot about affirmations and the importance of them. But what you say is, I'm willing to release the need to. I am willing to release the need to. And you fill in the blank. I've given you some examples. Be in control. Think that I have to do it all. Think that I have to be perfect. Those are things that you in this moment could verbalize, could say to release the need to be. And this is your homework as well. And maybe you post this somewhere in your home or in your car, in your purse, because sometimes we need reminders. Because here's what I know about humans and our human behavior. We will forget what we need to remember, and we will remember what we need to forget. And so I encourage you to write it. Now let's transition to our next area. If you have the things that we just talked about in regards to expectations, those unrealistic expectations will then affect your value. And that's the next part, your value. Your value is defined as the regard that you have for something that you hold to be deserving. You see it as important, worthy, and useful. And what happened, I believe, in Eve's scenario in the garden, when she considered the idea of being like God, I believe she compared herself. I believe in that moment, she looked at who she thought she was, and she looked at the idea of being like God, and she compared herself. For here's the thing, and I love this quote: comparison is the thief of joy. And in that moment, I think she robbed herself of who she really was. And in doing that, and when we do this, we minimize who we really are. You see, remember, Eve was created in the image and likeness of God. But in that moment, she forgot that, and she devalued who she really was. And so in the story, there was a lie that was told. There was something that was not true. Do you remember what it was from the text? What the story, she was told two things. She would be like God, which is not what God told them. And the second thing she was told was she would not die. And so because she believed the things that weren't true, here's what happened. She convinced herself that she would actually make a decision because she thought that the things that she wanted, she would get. Because remember, she minimized who she was. And so the question that I remember and I often ask is, and even God asked this in the story, after you go back to the text, after they had eaten from the fruit, he says to them, who told you you were naked? Remember, they hid, they were ashamed. But in the first chapter, as I read that, they had no shame. But in this moment, they were feeling shame. And he says, who told you? And that's the question I like to ask you. Who told you, or what told you that you weren't good enough, you weren't worthy, you weren't deserving? Because I think that's what happened as she compared herself. She started to think, I'm not good enough. Something's wrong with me. What's happening? I'm missing something. We're going to talk more about it. And so this is another evaluation stance, because what you will find is when you start to compare yourself, you might begin to say things like this. Oh, I am just a teacher. Oh, I am just a mother. Oh, I am not as good as such and such. My sister does this better than me. You'll find that those are some of the words or phrases that you might use when you start to compare yourself, when you start to minimize the woman you were created to be. And so I want you to look at the questions, because this is really about self-reflection and self-discovery. From the list and from what you've even heard me say, where do you see yourself? I'll be honest. I've found times where I've compared myself. Oh, my hair isn't as long as. Oh, I'm not as skinny as I used to be, right? There's all these comparisons. Where do you see your struggles? And when or where did you learn to compare yourself? And what beliefs do you have that reinforce that? Because these are the things that you want to look at if you want to change it. Here's the thing. You can't change something you don't confront. You can't change something you don't confront. And don't allow the judgmental, critical, harsh self that we all can have at times to interfere with you changing. What I love about your value is it is attached often to how we see ourselves and what we say about ourselves. And so in this slide, what it's really talking about is the I am statements. And how frequently do you say them or think them? And the power that lies between the words I am and whatever goes after that is great. So you might say, I am beautiful. I am not talented. I am not, you may say not, or you may say am. But whatever you put in between those words becomes very powerful. And it has a lot to do with how you feel and your value and your worth. And so here's where I want to make another transition, because what I want you to know is God's perspective. And this is why this training is even being done. You may see yourself and compare yourself, but what God sees is that you are complete. You are complete as defined as you have all necessary or normal parts to make something whole or perfect. And the Bible describes in Colossians 2:9 that you are complete in Christ. And the idea of completeness and wholeness is exactly the mission of what I do with the Whole Woman Experience. And I want you to know that at the core of who you are whole, that you are valuable, that you are worthy, that you are good enough, that you are deserving. And here's the keys that I want you to remember about your worth. Your worth can't be given and it can't be taken away. And that you are 100% worthy, unconditionally, no matter what. I think sometimes we put qualifiers on whether we are worthy or whether we are whole. But there is no qualifier because you are 100% worthy, unconditionally, at all times. And that no person is either any greater or lesser than. We all are worthy. And that message I want you to hear. If you hear nothing else, that is what I want you to see. That's God's perspective of you, because He sees us as complete. You see the things that you constantly want to work on, but He sees you as complete. And this is what defines your value, the woman you were created to be. And so let's talk about solutions. Because here's what happened in the story with Eve and what caused her to compare herself. I believe she believed a lie. And what I want you to think about maybe is, what are the lies that you're believing? The lie that you're not good enough, you're not talented enough, you're not worthy enough, you're not deserving, you're not lovable, all of those things that we believe that aren't true. And the only solution that I know that will help with this is you expose a lie with truth. You expose a lie with truth. And so what if telling myself, you fill in the blank, what if telling myself the story that I am not good enough is a lie? What if that's not true? What if Eve would have thought in that moment, what if telling myself the story that I will be like God is a lie? She didn't need that. She was already made in the image and likeness of Him. And so this caused her to respond and make a decision that ultimately had consequences for herself, her family, and maybe even for us today. And I want you to remember that as you are thinking about what you're believing and what you're convinced of. And if you have a thought or a belief and you're finding it does not serve you, my encouragement for you is to let it go. If you have a thought or a belief that is not serving you, I encourage you to let it go. Let it go. We're going to talk about how to do that. So here's what I want you to remember. Here's the question, right? We're doing some inner work as you're listening to this. And this may actually be very emotional or bringing up feelings and thoughts for you. And that's okay. They're coming up so that you can resolve them. The question to ponder here is, are you holding on to something you need to let go of? Because it could ultimately be affecting your value and what God wants for you and what He has for you. If you're answering that question and say, yes, I am, Natalie, what do I do next? I gave you an option. I gave you an answer. The affirmation on the right side of the screen says, I am willing to release all resistance to. That's the first part. I am willing to release all resistance to. And what you want to do is identify what it is. Believing that I am worthy, loving, being loving towards myself, comparing myself to others. Those are the things that you would fill in the blank. And this is an affirmation that you want to place somewhere. Because what will happen is you need to repeat this over and over and over again. That's a part of my story. I had a belief that I wasn't beautiful. And I remember as God helped me and He taught me before I even knew anything about what I'm doing now. But He had me to do an affirmation that said, I am beautiful because He created me that way. I am beautiful because He created me that way. Now I will tell you, all of the stuff in my head that was contrary to that would come up as I would do my affirmation. Look at this, look at that. You remember this, you see that, all that stuff in my head. But I can tell you, the more and the more and the more I said it, the more and more I believed it, and the more it was true for me. Because He created me that way. And I want you to know, as we're talking about this, that He created you perfect, complete, and lacking nothing. And let's move to our third and final area that we're going to talk about and focus on in this training. This is the area of security. The area of security. And so let's define it. I always like to define what we're talking about. Security is defined as freedom from danger, well-founded confidence. So what I want us to talk about is the perspective of Eve and how she had false confidence and how it robbed her of her security. Here's the thing. When we have a fear of inadequacy, it will steal your confidence. And remember from the last section, Eve felt inadequate. She felt like she was missing something. She felt like perhaps something was wrong with her. As she compared herself, she felt like something was missing. And I want to go into the next one, which is our next illusion, the illusion of missing something. The illusion of missing something. You would be surprised to know that that's a very common fear that many of us have. Many of us have either had it and we've worked through it, or we're on a journey of trying to figure it out, or some of us don't even know that that's what's operating in our lives. But I want you to know that that's a very common fear. And I believe Eve, in that moment, she felt she was missing something. If we go back to the text, we read over it again, He says that you'll have wisdom. The serpent is having the conversation to tell her she would have wisdom. And I think Eve thought to herself, wait a minute, I'm missing something. I don't have that. And so I perhaps need that in order to be. Well, here's what I want you to know. This fear of missing something will get in the way and will block us from loving ourselves, from taking risks, and activating your fullest potential. Because here's what you will end up doing. You will always be on a search to find what you think is missing. What I want to give you the answer to that question and that fear is that everything that you need is already within you. That it's already within you. But the fear of missing something gets in the way. And so you're always in search of trying to find something that's already within you. And ultimately, this fear is underlined with another fear. That fear is that if I'm missing something, I won't be loved. And being loved is a very human need that we all have. And so you have the idea that I'm missing something and ultimately I won't be loved. But I want to give you something else today. I want you to know that you are loved and you are lovable. You are loved and you are lovable. Let's move to the next illusion, because I think this also affects our security because it gives us a false confidence. The illusion of false positives. I know I'm giving you a lot of content. I want it today to give you value. So I'm hoping that this is useful for you and that you are seeing some things differently, even about who you were created to be. But false positives is the belief that one thing or several things will make us more secure in all areas. I'll repeat that. You believe, or I believe, or we believe that one thing in several areas will make us more secure in all things. You notice that I said that this is an illusion, because an illusion is ultimately a false belief. And so here's our self-evaluation. I want us to really reflect on, think about, and work through. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to look at what's on the screen. And I want you to identify one thing that you tend to associate the most with being secure. One thing, and I've given you some examples. Maybe yours isn't on the screen, but I want you to write it. So you're going to identify one thing that you tend to associate the most with being secure. The examples that I've given is financial status, living on a certain side of town, being in a relationship, popularity, beauty, thinness, and the list goes on and on. But I really want you to reflect on, what does this look like for me? I'll give you a moment to do that, about 10 seconds, and see what comes up for you. I'm hoping that you were able to get an answer and to realize and see, is this something that I've made a false positive? Is this something that I've made a false positive? And is it something that I need to reevaluate? Because in the story of Eve, as we always go back to her, I think in that moment, her false positive was wisdom. Her false positive was wisdom. And she felt like, I'm missing something. I don't have this, and I want this. And I wonder what my life will be like if I had it. And so going back to your list, you said, I don't have this, and I want this. And I wonder what my life would be like if I had it. And the challenge with that becomes that you start to live in a future moment. That you say, when I have, then I will be. When I have, then I will be. And your happiness is contingent upon a moment that hasn't even existed yet, that hasn't come into existence yet. And it oftentimes causes us to not enjoy the moment that we're currently in. And I think Eve is in a garden that is beautiful, and it has all the things that she needs. But she is in a moment of thinking about, what if I had wisdom? What would my life be like? An announcement that I want to give you is that you are lacking nothing. You are lacking nothing. That is the woman that you were created to be. What does that mean? You say, Natalie, what does that mean? Lacking nothing means that you are not missing one thing. Nothing is absent. Nothing is absent. And I know that's a struggle, because you're saying, but you don't know, Natalie. But you don't know. You don't know. I get that. But I want you to hear me. You are lacking nothing. God sees you as lacking nothing. You see the things that you still need, but God sees you as lacking nothing. That is your security, in knowing that you're lacking nothing. Let's talk about what we've talked about, because I think this is so important. Well, let's go back a moment. I want to reflect on something. Let's go back to Eve. Here's the thing. She felt like she was lacking something. And what she thought she was lacking was wisdom. And wisdom, what is it? Let's talk about what she thought she was missing. Wisdom is the very thing that you need to distinguish or decipher good from evil. Wisdom is something that you need in order to decipher good from evil. Well, let's think about the story. She is in a place that there is all good. Think about the garden. If we went back to the text, that's where she was. In that moment, there was no need for her to have wisdom to decipher good and evil, because until they ate the fruit, there was no evil. And so she thought she was missing something. And the truth of the matter is she didn't even need what she thought she was missing. I think you're getting that. Because I think that's a part of why I want you to hear this, because maybe the thing that you think you are missing, you don't even need, or you already have it. You don't even need it, or you already have it. Let me give another powerful nugget as I'm remembering to share this with you from the text. Another thing is, the text in Genesis says that God gave them dominion. What does that mean? What does dominion mean? I know you're thinking about it. And if you need to grab a dictionary or Google it, you can. I'll give you a moment. But what I want you to hear is dominion is to have authority or control. To have authority or control. Here's the thing. It says, it lists in the text everything that they had power and control over. Now go back to who she was talking to. I know somebody's already catching where we're going. She was talking to a serpent. And the Bible says, every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. I think the serpent was in that category. So here's the thing that I think Eve didn't know, which is a part of why I want to teach this to you about your identity, your value, and your security. Because the very thing that convinced her to believe the lie and to make a choice that was actually going to be more detrimental to her was something that she had control over. I want you to hear that. Because the very things that maybe you think are convincing you, controlling you, and causing you to make decisions is the very thing that you have control over. And that God has given you that authority. And that's in knowing your identity and knowing who you are and knowing whose you are. And that you don't have to struggle through that anymore, because He gave you that same dominion, that same authority, that same control over whatever it is that may be bothering or hindering you. I wanted to say that because I didn't earlier, but I think that's such a powerful truth. When we know the truth, it makes us free. And that's the truth that I wanted to offer you, even in this training. I'd love if you have questions to reach out to me. I know that you are watching this, but I want to answer those questions. If you say, Natalie, I am struggling with this, and I hear what you had to say, but I need more, because this is an area of growth for me. And I think it is. I think the struggle comes because this is a great opportunity for you to grow. The beauty of life is that God will afford you opportunities to grow. And oftentimes those opportunities come in areas that we are being stretched and that are challenging and that are difficult. But that's okay. Because when you get it, you then can give it to someone else. And as humans, I think that's our greatest areas to feel alive. It's areas where we're growing and areas where we are giving. And that's a part of my story. I have personally walked through many of these things that I have put in this training. And I personally have implemented the strategies so I can be the woman that I am today. I have fought to become her. And I want you to fight to become the woman you were created to be, and or continue to fight for the woman you already are. So let's talk about reviewing. Let's talk about what we've talked about, because I want to make sure you walk away with some value. When you think about the presentation of what we've done today, perfect, complete, and lacking nothing, what resonated the most for you? And I want you to write it down. I'll give you about 60 seconds. I really want you to reflect on what resonated with you, what was coming up for you, because I believe that was divine intervention, that God was truly speaking to you. I want you to remember that you are perfect, you are complete, and you are lacking nothing. I'll give you about 30 more seconds to really reflect on what came up for you, what was speaking to you the most. Here's what I want us to go back to. When we went over perfect, I want you to remember that means you have all necessary parts, all the elements that are needed, that are necessary. What I do want you to remember is that the unrealistic expectations that you have placed on yourself, just as Eve placed on herself when she thought like God, put her in a position to live in an illusion, a false belief that she would be in control and that she would be perfect, and that neither is true. In order to let go of control, you have to realize you never had it. And in order to work through perfection, you have to embrace your imperfections and operate in self-compassion. Let's go to complete. Complete means that you're a whole, that you are perfect, and that all of you is all of that. And I offered you some principles about wholeness, that at the core of who you are whole, no matter if you feel like that way or not. And to know that you are worthy, and you are 100% worthy unconditionally, no matter what. And that your worth can't be given and it can't be taken away, because that is who you are. That is who you were created to be. And then the last one was about understanding and remembering that you are lacking nothing. And to be mindful of those things that are coming, that are false positives, that will rob you of your confidence and your security. And understanding that you aren't missing anything, that you have everything that you need already within you to be and do everything that you were created to do. I have an affirmation. Remember, I told you I love affirmations because that's a part of what we talked about in this presentation. And there's an affirmation that I will often say is I have divine ability to attract or create what I need or desire. I'll repeat that. I have divine ability to attract or create what I need or desire. And when that comes from me, that helps that brings lacking nothing into perspective. Because sometimes I can feel like I'm missing something. I don't have enough education. I don't have enough training. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough. And that idea of not having enough puts us in a place of scarcity. But what I want you to know is that you are enough, which is the opposite of scarcity. You are enough. You had enough. You are enough. So what are your takeaways? Because I have been doing a lot of sharing in regards to this information. But I would love to hear, even as you email me or reach out to me on my website, and I'll give you that in a moment. What are your takeaways from this training? What are you walking away with? Because here's what I said to you earlier. Information precedes transformation, but it is action that makes transformation happen. We've got to do something. Otherwise, we've spent almost an hour of our time together. You've gotten some really great information, and then you go back and be the same person. And that's not my heart's desire for you. My heart's desire, which I believe is God's desire, is that you put some things in action so that you can do this. So what does action look like for you? Maybe it looks like I will each day implement self-compassion. Maybe it looks like I will embrace insecurities. Maybe I will say the affirmations that I have in this presentation daily. Maybe it looks like forgiving yourself, which I didn't say earlier, but is huge in regards to moving through some of the challenges and the struggles of being a woman. And forgiving yourself for thinking you had to be perfect. Forgiving yourself for believing that you had to do it all. Forgiving yourself for feeling afraid that you were missing something. Those are things that you can do. And so self-forgiveness is a big part of what you can do, big takeaway that you can do from this training. And I don't even just think this is a training. I think this is an impartation. That these things are being imparted into you and inspiring you to do something different. And so what I have on the screen now is actually the book that this is coming from. This information came from a book that I'm writing, Perfect, Complete, and Lacking Nothing, What Every Woman Needs to Know About Herself. And what happened for me, I want to share the journey, was about 8 years ago, I started writing this content. And I had no idea that this would actually go into a book, or it would even be a part of this presentation for the Led to Lead conference, which I want to say, and I didn't say earlier, thank you, Genesis, and your staff for allowing me to have this opportunity to share this with everyone that's listening. And so discover the woman you were created to be, because that's what I want for you. I want you to have this. And what is this doing? It's providing insight into the common struggles of a woman. And as you saw, we went back to the very beginning, where I believe many of our struggles may have even started, and teaching you how to overcome these obstacles with ease and confidence. And so what I want you to walk away with is God's intent, God's perspective. And so you can let go of all the underlying beliefs, habits, and behaviors that are robbing you of your happiness, your peace, and your security. So you can live in your fullest potential. And I believe that's what God wants for you. He wants that. He desires that for you. And so I love to stay connected to you. I hope and I pray that you have gotten value from the content, and I'd love to stay connected. And so this is just an opportunity for you to connect with me on any of the sites, social media sites, my website, that you can get more information, you can get more resources, you can actually get connected. Because I didn't say this earlier, but there are 4 things that happened as a result of the situation that happened with Eve. She walked in fear, she walked in shame, she walked in blame, and she walked in isolation or disconnection. And I think that's the same things that can happen to us if we're not mindful and careful, and we don't walk into the things that God has for us. And we know our identity, our value, and our security. It would be fear, shame, blame. I didn't say guilt, but guilt is a part of that, and disconnection. I want to make sure that you walk into everything that God has for you. You be the woman that God created you to be. My name is Natalie Gray Warren. I am a transformational coach and speaker. I'm an author. I'm a licensed professional counselor. It has been my privilege to serve you and to give you information that I think is life-changing. I want you to remember the action steps that you said you could do. And I want you to walk away and do them. Commit to doing them today. And a powerful thing that will help you is have someone to hold you accountable and say, hey, this is what I'm working towards, and I need you to hold me accountable. Because God has invested in you becoming everything that He created for you to be. And I want to see that happen for you as well. It has been my pleasure to do this training. Thank you again, Genesis. Thank you again, all the ladies with the Led to Lead conference and being able to share this on this platform. You all have a wonderful day and be blessed.